Benni McCarthy gives a tell-all interview about Manchester United and his time there, and INEOS hold their board meeting on Tuesday, and there's been a deathly silence ever since. Well, let's dive into these issues in Manchester United, the D Unit's view. Look, what better place to start than the board meeting on Tuesday? So apparently it went for a long time. It's been reported that this meeting went on for upwards to 7 hours. Obviously, they discussed a lot of different things, probably about the Old Trafford regeneration project, which obviously the fan survey closed end of last week, because I got an email about it last week. And yeah, they probably discussed that. But at the chief of their list of priorities to talk about would have been the manager of Manchester United, Mr. Erik Ten Hag. Now, as I have discussed on here previously over the last few episodes, I think he just has to go. I don't see a world where he continues and Manchester United do anything other than what we're currently doing, and that's producing mediocre results and just frustrating the fan base, really. I think that's the best way of describing it. I think it's come to the point where a clean break does need to be made. Now, the fact that there's been such silence since Tuesday, and obviously prior to that, Sir Jim last week, just before the weekend, before the Villa game, said, he likes Erik, but it's not really his decision, like trying to pass it off to someone else. So let's have a look at whose decision the manager's job actually is. Now, obviously, INEOS are in charge of the football department, but Joel Glazer also apparently attended this board meeting on Tuesday, which which if it's about Manchester United, makes sense. They are still, the Glazer family are still the majority share owners of Manchester United. And, if a decision like the manager is going to be made, you would think that, the INEOS team that running the football department would recommend it, but you would still think that someone from the Glazers, most probably Joel, would have to tick it off. Now, I actually thought about this and I was like, everyone was like, there's this new direction or whatever. But in reality, the Glazers still are there. And it's looking like the blueprint that's actually happening here is the Glazer blueprint. From, the last few managers that have been sacked, there has been this kind of deathly silence or whatever. The only difference is that the Glazers, quite often there were leaks in there that would suggest which way they were going to go and who they were talking to. There is no leaks with what INEOS have decided or whatever here. Like, we don't know if they're actually going to stick with Ten Hag, or if they do, how long they're going to stick with him for. But what we do know is that probably Joel Glazer probably has to tick it off. Now, I can't imagine any other result other than a sacking for Ten Hag if after the international break, the fixtures against Brentford and West Ham in the league go poorly. Like, I just can't see it. That would leave United with 2 wins from the opening 9 games. It's actually a thought to be scared about. And when you look at those potential fixtures, Brentford was so close to winning at Old Trafford last season. And the bloke that saved us that day is no longer at the club. And, the longer it goes on, Scott McTominay is doing super well for Napoli, and I'm glad that he is. But his ability to actually score a goal is significantly lacking in the current squad with where we're at the moment. And yeah, look, so I was thinking about, what would they be talking about Erik Ten Hag? Like, and Sir Jim's probably sitting there. So he's been to the Liverpool game where we saw his head in his hands and all the rest. He's been to the Tottenham game where, again, it was just another debacle. Oh no, maybe he didn't go to the Tottenham game. I could be wrong about that one. Take that one back. But he definitely went to the Aston Villa game, and yeah, he definitely went to Liverpool and Aston Villa games. Sorry, he didn't go to the Tottenham one. I don't recall seeing him in the stands. But look, it's hard to think that he's anything other than disappointed with what he has seen. And probably like, mate, I've invested £1.25 billion into this project. What is actually going on? Like, what am I getting? What's my money getting me? And there'll be so many questions that he potentially would have been asking at this board meeting. Like, if we go back now and look at the summer signings, the summer signings don't even look that good anymore. I mean, let's forensically have a look at it. So Manuel Ugarte hasn't started the last 2 games. They spent £51 million on him, potentially. I think that's all up. Might be 42 to begin with, but rising to 51. I'd be sitting around going to Dan Ashworth and Omar Brada. Well, why have we signed this player if he's not even in the team? Like, why are we wasting money? I'd then be looking at, DeLitt. Why is he getting dropped for Harry Maguire, who's into his last year of his contract? Mazarawi, obviously, he's had a minor operation to fix some of his heart, so he's going to spend some time on the injury table now as well with Lenny Yoro. And then we've got Joshua Zirkzee, who, I don't know, man. If I want to put on my Fellaini wig at the moment, I reckon I could probably do a better job than him when it comes to scoring goals. Look, let's have a look at the mistake of the forward line. I said it during the summer, needed the forwards. But all we've ended up with is £120 million spent on Højlund and Zirkzee, and neither of them are guaranteed goals. That's just, frankly, just bad recruitment. So Jim's probably asking him, what's with these summer signings? They don't seem to have made any difference. We've got rid of these players. Arguably, the players that have left have done really well for the clubs they've joined. Like Scott McTominay started off with a blinder. Alvaro Fernandes is now being scouted by, apparently rumoured in the papers. You always got to take that with a pinch of salt. But apparently he's being lined up by Barcelona and Real Madrid. And he's a left back. And what do we have in the team at the moment? We don't have a left back. Like, there's so many things that you just sit there and go, man, we're still a complete and utter shambles on and off the pitch. So, yeah, look, that's the first thing I would have talked at. And then, obviously, the question would have seemed like, well, why are we... Someone's got to have asked it in there, why are we sticking with Ten Hag? And is it because of the fact that INEOS don't have the balls to admit that they listened to the fans after the FA Cup win and have backed him in, and then they don't want to look like idiots 3 months later with egg on their faces when they turn around and say, actually, he's not the right man for the job? 100%, I actually think that's probably what it is at this point, because I don't understand why there's been complete silence. Like, it's one of them weird ones. Like, and I appreciate the silence, but at the moment, all they've done is literally increase the pressure on the club, and they've literally left Erik Ten Hag out to dry for the results that have happened so far this season. And I just don't think that's good enough. So look, if they get the next appointment wrong, and this might be the reason why they haven't actually sacked him yet. If they get the next appointment wrong, they're going to be seen just like the Glazers, because the Glazers are still there, and they're just going to be seen as like the Glazers pals and, powwowing and all the rest. It's just not a good look. So like, there is so much pressure on the club from like top to bottom to get it right. And at the moment, we can definitely agree they're not getting it right at all. In any way, shape or form, we are so far from being right. We're that very wrong. But yeah, look, so the INEOS board meeting, I think it says a lot that, we don't know anything more. The longer the silence goes on, the worse it probably looks for Erik. And I think that, if they do get those poor results after the starting next weekend, I just can't see any hope for him. Any hope for him at all. And look, some of the comments that have come out this week from the Benni McCarthy, the former assistant coach, are quite insightful. Like, it's interesting the fact that somehow along the line there was not a non-disclosure agreement signed, because he's literally if anything, he's actually piled more pressure on Erik Ten Hag. He might not have meant to, but we'll get into those comments a little bit. But I just want to talk about I'll talk about one positive thing. So Onana has scooped the Premier League award for his double save at Crystal Palace. So yeah, well done to him. I think that was the save of the month. I think, yeah. So look, that was a fantastic save. And if there's one player that can hold their head up high, or their congratulate themselves, it's probably Andre Onana this season. Like, bar that Liverpool game where he had a couple of few moments in that, he's actually been pretty good. He's saved a penalty. He's made that world-class save against Crystal Palace. He's actually been super good for Manchester United this season. And yeah, compared to last season, I'd say he's definitely improved. But he needs to keep it up. And a few of his mates need to join him because, let's be honest, they've been quite poor. Now, I want to talk about Bruno Fernandes. Now, as I've said, he has had his worst ever start to Manchester United, a season with Manchester United since he joined under Ollie. And yeah, he's come out and admitted as such. He said it's not been good enough. But there is some part of his quotes I just want to focus on. So, look, this is what he said. So, we're not winning. It's not a positive moment, Fernandes told a press conference ahead of Portugal's upcoming UEFA Nations League game against Poland. We're not winning games, and the national team space is completely different. I've felt very at ease. The dynamics are very good. I'm in my country. I speak my language, and I have better food. I've demonstrated a good level in the national team. It's a space where I feel good, and I feel like I can enjoy my football at a very high level due to the dynamics we have and the quality I have at my side. That last bit there is quite damning, I think, about the current Manchester United side. There is a distinct lack of quality in the team. Like in the first team. Like when our starting 11, people sit there and say, oh, these players are good, these players are good, these players are good. But they're actually not. The level of the standard of the players in the team currently is poor. And I actually quite agree with him. The quality he has in his side at Portugal is a boatload better than what he's got in the team of him with Manchester United. And it's no coincidence that he played well for Portugal in the last international break. And I wouldn't be surprised if he played well in this one as well. And I just don't know what the answer is. I just think that somewhere along the line there's just a lack of unity, a lack of passion, just a lack of a lot of things. And it's no good. No good moving forward. When your captain is coming out and saying those kind of things, saying that, it's a much better dynamic at the international team, there's significant problems afoot. Significant problems. When your captain of your club is saying that on international duty, it's not a good sign. But look, in respect to that, he has also said, no one is more disappointed than myself with my own moment. So he said that after the Tottenham and FC Porto games. Yeah, we obviously got the 2 red cards in those games, so that wasn't overly helpful. So he did go on to further say this. It's about improving as soon as I get back there to Manchester, making the goals appear again because I'm a midfielder that scores a lot of goals and has over the years always shown a very high level of goals. I have to live up to those expectations and to my standards. What I've been doing is not at all what I want for this season because I haven't scored at the club yet. I hope that once I get there, I can score and help my club get back to winning ways and be at a good level. So look, hopefully he does. I'm hoping that the old Bruno comes back because, my God, if Manchester United are going to turn these results around, we need Bruno Fernandes back, firing and scoring goals. He's hit the nail on the head. If he doesn't do that, Manchester United are going nowhere this season. Absolutely nowhere, because there's no one else that's been a more sure thing in terms of goal creation and goals scored than Bruno Fernandes since he joined. Even like when Marcus Rashford had that worldie of a season, Bruno Fernandes was still humming along at that insane rate of goals and assists. But this season, he's just been completely devoid. And we really need him to turn around. So hopefully this reset of the international break can do that. We'll just have to wait and see, I suppose. Now, Roberto Martinez, the Portugal manager, actually came out and said about the too many games and stuff like that. Well, I can tell you what, there is one easy way they could fix the amount of games being played. Cut out the bullshit UEFA Nations League games. Why do we have the international breaks in September, October, November? That's 3 international breaks, 6 games that could just be put in the bin. Nobody cares about the UEFA Nations League at all. Like, at all. Just bin them. I actually can't stand international football in general, like in terms of during the season. Like, I quite like it at the end of the season. I personally think what they should do is they should just bin international football until the summer. And the summer, you have like you play your qualifiers or whatever it is you need, and you can really condense it down. And that way you're not playing all these extra games during the season. And the clubs also then don't have to worry about their players getting injured while they're on international duty during the season. Makes it a boatload easier rather than having to deal with injuries and stuff like that. Thankfully, we've had no injuries yet so far this international break, other than the ones that have pulled out with injury before they've even gone. So we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, look, I'm on board with that. Like, I just think there's too much football in terms of international games. And I don't see the relevance behind playing Nations League football at all, other than the fact that it's just a piss take, really. It's just putting the players at too much risk of injury and stuff like that. Now, the other things I want to talk about are Benni McCarthy's comments. So he has been talking to a bunch of people since he left his role as assistant manager. And he's said some really interesting things. So the first I want to talk about is Marcus Rashford. So Benni McCarthy has come out and said he's pure heart and he's a Manchester United lad through and through. I think with me, because I wasn't going, oh, Rashy, he was Marcus to me. I was straight to the point and he respected that instead of me sweet-talking him. And I think that's the problem with Marcus Rashford. A lot of his entourage or things like that, like, he's a good person at bloke. He championed for those school meals during COVID, during the shutdowns and all this. He's done some fantastic stuff. I just think the problem is that people aren't real enough with him and telling him, hey, mate, you played like shit on the weekend. Pull your socks up, get out there and give me a performance. That's the kind of passion, and I think that's what Benni McCarthy's trying to say here. And Erik Ten Hag sitting there pulling him off at halftime in the FC Porto game, and then comes out after the game, calls it rotation. Just come out and said, Marcus, you defended poorly. We need more from you. Tell him straight, man. Don't say, oh, it's rotation. You don't do yourself any favours of that. And I think that's the problem with Ten Hag. He just doesn't have the passion to connect with the players. He might be, and Benni McCarthy has alluded to as such in his interview here, where he said that tactically Ten Hag is really good. Having said that, we can't really... I think he actually is a really good tactical manager. I just don't think his tactics work in the Premier League. I think that's half the problem. Let me know in the comments if you think I'm wrong. But that's my personal opinion. I think that, yeah, he just doesn't seem to realise what it takes to win in the Premier League consistently. Like, he had it in his first season, like, for the majority of it until that Carabao Cup win, and then it just sort of started nosediving off a cliff, and we had never got back up off the nosedive off the cliff. But like, it was interesting to see that, particularly in Marcus Rashford's case, like, he needs probably someone bollocking him, like telling him, come on, mate, get up, get on with it. I just don't know. Like, last season, he's just become... Marcus Rashford entered the team when he was 18 looking like he was going to be an absolute world beater. And then he's had moments under the different managers where he's been fantastic. And he's been brilliant for like 20-odd goals a season. And then the next season, he's like barely visible. There's got to be something to it. And maybe, like, sometimes players do need the straight-talking nonsense. Like, I just sit there and look back to when I'm like, I've like coached, managed my teams, like over in Australia, and like some players you would sit there and you would have to mollycoddle them a bit because that's the kind of personality they had. But others just sit there and tell them, mate, that wasn't good enough. You're better than that, and they'll respond. Sometimes it's about like working that. I don't think that is a strength of Erik Ten Hag, and I think that's a lot of the reason behind why we're getting such inconsistent and poor performances. Because from all reports, they actually train really well. But when it comes to match days, it's like a different team rolls up. And as I said, you don't know which team is going to show up on any given day. And yeah, I don't know if that's about the motivation from like the hierarchy. I don't know. So yeah, like this is what also McCarthy went on to say. I was a straight shooter and he probably didn't have enough people in his life that is straight with him. Because everyone tells him what he needs to hear and what he wants to hear because of who he is. I was normal and he appreciated that. So I think that makes sense. I think he just needs... like the unfortunate thing is that Rashford at this point feels like a wasted talent because he has the talent. You can see it in games. When he's running at players and he's on form, he looks like a world beater. And then there's other games where he's sitting there and he's being asked to do things that he's no good at, whatever. Like tracking back he's never been good at. But you just got to play the system to utilize the best aspects of your players. That's what it's all about. I remember my very first year coaching. I was 19 years old and I had an under 14s team, and I was like, who the hell's going to score me goals, man? I didn't have a lot of quality in the squad. And then I found this bloke that had been playing centre defence, but he could run. And I was like, well, if he can run, you can exploit it. You can set your team up to like play a certain way of football where you're just feeding him through and letting him run through on goal. And we won. We won the season. And it was all because this one player, and you utilised the strength of your team. And I just don't think that Erik Ten Hag does that very well at Manchester United. Now, Benni McCarthy also went on to talk about Jadon Sancho. Again, this shows Erik Ten Hag's failings as Manchester United manager. 100%. Him and Cristiano Ronaldo. Now, it's really funny. There's a short on YouTube going around about like when Ruud van Nistelrooy got asked before, I think it was a Champions League game against Arsenal when he was with PSV, and he said, and the question was put to him, would you have left Cristiano Ronaldo out after he stormed out down the touchline? And Ruud just sits there and goes, he's just laughing. He's like, I want to talk about the game. I just don't think the way Erik Ten Hag deals with certain things is very proactive. It's very reactive, and I just don't think it's worked with some of these players. And I actually think that that's what's leading to what appears to be the squad disharmony that we're seeing in games. There's no one really leading there and dragging the team by the scruff of the neck. There's no Roy Keane influence. It's just a bit meh. So Benni McCarthy was actually blamed it down to a lack of communication, which stopped Jadon Sancho achieving his full potential. And look, I would agree. I personally think that Erik Ten Hag is solely to blame for what's happened here. And I'm actually not surprised that he's playing really well for Chelsea. Because I just think that, as Benny went on to say, he's a great boy, great character, fantastic footballer, unbelievable at the things that he can do. And Jadon Sancho is really good. He's a real baller when it comes to the ball. The problem is it just didn't work out at him for United. And Benni McCarthy said, unfortunately, it's probably a lack of communication and understanding. And yeah, that was the downside that didn't end up working with Sancho at Man United. I just think that particular there just shows what happens. I think that's a really good insight as to what's happened there. He's then also talked about Erik Ten Hag in general. So he accused the Dutchman of lacking passion and the players of not training hard enough. So, yeah, it's not good. He also talked about the falling out with Cristiano Ronaldo. And then he said, yes, it was inevitable. In the end, he left the club and chose Al Nassr. He's proven to everyone that he can still score goals if we work as a team and then let Cristiano do what he needs to do in his position because he is the best in the world. That's ideal. Look, Cristiano Ronaldo was never going to work in Erik Ten Hag's system because he doesn't press. He just scores goals. And that's the older he got, that's all he was interested in. I think that one's pretty self-explanatory. But yeah, look, I just think that the fact that Benni McCarthy's coming out and saying things like this is just really damning on the club in general. I just don't understand why an NDA wasn't signed. Because it's not helping the club at all, and it's just piling more pressure on Erik Ten Hag, and that's the last thing he needs at the moment, particularly with the fact that INEOS are not coming out and really backing him at all. They've just literally left him to hang out to dry. Look, it's going to be interesting. Who knows what's coming in the second week of the holidays and of the international break. Erik Ten Hag's on holiday as well, and I was sitting there and having the discussion with a bunch of other Manchester United fans. If you have started the season this poorly, why in the hell are you having a holiday? It's like me just sitting there going, oh man, I've just had the shittest week at work. I've done this. I'm taking a holiday. That's not how it works. You would think that if anything, you'd be striving your best to try and turn this around. The last thing you'd need is a bloody holiday. Yeah, you might need a holiday away from the noise. Just turn your phone off. Stay away from the computer. But get back to work, man. If you've started the season with 2 wins from 7 and you're going on holiday, it sends a horrible look. A horrible look. So look, that's been the week at Manchester United. It's been a week of nothing. A week of complete and utter silence. There's been rumours galore amongst the papers because that's what happens. When there's nothing, they just make up stuff. The Manchester Evening News were making up that, Thomas Tuchel is being lined up, but apparently there's no truth behind that. Now Thomas Tuchel's being linked with the England job after Lee Carsley somehow lost to Greece at home. Oh my God. I thought United were playing poor. But in fairness, at least he was trying something different in that game. Like, he played so many attacking players on that pitch, it just didn't work. So probably back to the drawing board there. But now he's been linked with that job. So like, Thomas Tuchel's got really good PR, by the way. He's just getting linked with jobs. Eventually he's going to stick one. And again, like, if we're looking at who I'd put in, I actually think that I'd just put Ruud in. I know that it's a mockery of the fact that he is part of that team, that backroom team that is supporting Erik Ten Hag. But I just think that just put him in and then assess the other options. Do your due diligence over the rest of the season about who you want and just go with them and then just stick with them. Stick with them. Sell them what it is that the footballing side of Manchester United is all about and hope that they're on board with it. Because I don't think that Erik Ten Hag aligns with what they're trying to put in. And I think that's the end game. Let me know in the comments what you think. That's been Manchester United, the D in its view. Make sure you like the video as well and subscribe if you're new around here. I will join you again sometime next week and we'll have a look ahead to the banana skin of a game at Old Trafford that is Brentford. I just can't imagine them losing 3 games in a row at home in the league. But unfortunately, I had to say it, but I think it's a very distinct reality, particularly if Erik Ten Hag is still in charge by then. But who knows what's going to happen. All right, join me then. That's the D in and out.